But it just, and if at any point we want to turn off, we can. Here we go. And this is Ernest driving before us?
Yes.
In the Buick Encore?
Yes.
And what part of Dallas are we in now at this Hilton?
This is actually, well, it's North Dallas.
Okay.
But kind of a nice area.
We went on a run this morning. It was great.
Yeah, it's kind of like you're near where the President Bush lives.
Oh.
Yeah, you're in that area, like the Ebby Holidays and all that.
Okay.
Are in this area.
Well, Bobbi's given us a little bit of context, telling us where we are right now in Dallas. If you were with us last night at Chicken Scratch, the Foundry, we had a great town hall / low dollar fundraiser. Thanks to everyone who came out, drank a beer, had fun, enjoyed themselves. We just finished having a cup of coffee and a quick breakfast, and have been joined by Bobbi Clavon, who I met in DeSoto, I want to say 3 months ago. 23rd. Oh, sorry, what was the date?
February 23rd.
And what time was it?
Oh, stop.
And Bobbi, who came to that town hall, asked a really important question, has since become a leader in the campaign. And so knowing that we were coming to Dallas today, and we're going to do some block walking, which we want to invite everyone to. We're going to Opportunity Park right now. If you can get out there in the next 20-30 minutes, we would love to have you join us. Talk a little bit about how we're reaching the people of Texas who are going to make the difference in this election, specifically in South Dallas. And I just was so excited that Bobbi had some time this morning, agreed to drive the Dodge Grand Caravan, and wanted to give her a chance to introduce herself and a little bit of context. And Bobbi, I'm just going to say everything that I know about you.
All right.
Which will take just a minute or two, and then I want you to fill in the gaps.
Sure.
Bobbi's about to celebrate a birthday coming up in less than a week. Was at the baseball game last night. The Astros were in town.
Yes.
This is part of your way of celebrating. Beat the Rangers. And that's tough to say in Dallas, right? Or you may be an Astros fan.
I was rooting for the Astros.
Oh, no. And you live here.
Yeah, I know. I root for the Astros and the Tigers because I'm a native Detroiter. So,
and that's
all the other times I root for the Rangers.
And so you really you really know this country. You were born and raised in Michigan, in Detroit.
Correct.
Went to school in the South, in Alabama, and then moved to North Texas to the Dallas area. And then to DeSoto, you said, in the late 90s.
Correct.
And while I introduced Bobbi as a leader in our campaign and a leader in the community, and therefore I would say a leader in the state and the country, she is not the first generation of leaders in her family. I wondered, Bobbi, if you would start telling us a little bit about yourself by telling us a little bit about your mom, which I found to be so interesting when we were having coffee right now.
Yeah, it's like my mother was actually a pretty unique individual. As a young woman, she was very active in the civil rights movement. And she spent most of her young years passing as white because she could. And in those times, black people couldn't go into stores, or they couldn't.
What years are we talking about?
We're talking about in the early 30s.
Okay.
And when she went away to school, she went away to school in Alabama as well. So for that school to survive, they had to be able to go into town to buy things and do things. So my mom could go into the stores and purchase materials and purchase things that the school would need. Now the boys who attended, the African American boys who attended the school, could obviously assist her because they could be like her help or whatever. So they were able to do that, but she was able to shop and to go and do things. And so she learned.
And this was in Detroit?
No, this is in Alabama.
This is in Alabama.
Right,
okay, so that's where she's from.
Right. Now my family initially, like if you just really want to go back in, because I can, actually started in the hills in North Carolina, in a place called Rabbitskill, North Carolina, which is on
Rabbitskill?
Yeah, Rabbitskill, which is the western end, like where Tennessee and North Carolina come together.
Okay.
And we actually had some relatives who were actually free slaves or whatever, but after emancipation, my family went to Canada, and where there they got educated. And then they moved back, which is how they landed like in the Detroit and in the Ohio type areas.
Okay.
Which kind of see the migration.
Wow.
Right.
So North Carolina to Canada. Canada to Detroit.
And in the Ohio area. Like, actually, they settled in Oberlin, which is a suburban area of not too far from Cleveland or whatever. So they settled there, and they were doctors, and they were entrepreneurs in the nursing home fields and stuff like that. So they went to Canada, got educated, and then came back.
And you were telling me that your mother was not only helping to be there for members of the African American community who were not able to go into these stores and were not treated as full U.S. citizens, but she was also part of a larger organized effort for civil rights. And can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. My mother was a very integral part of getting African Americans to register to vote, and they used a lot of different laws and different things to prevent people from being able to vote. So she would go in there and find out what they really needed to know and what they really needed to do, and then she would pass that information on. And so she worked for various groups, and even like the Dr. Kings and the Abernathys, and they would move her into certain areas, and then they move her out later. And
so they would say, we need you to go to
into
this
a
community.
certain area. She would go into communities and do things, and then move out.
Were you with her?
No, I was too young at that time.
And so you would stay with other family or with friends?
Correct, absolutely.
Yeah. But it obviously had an impression on you and helped to form who you are and the way that you approach your work now.
Absolutely. I mean, I can say I'm one of those few people who've had a cross burned on their yard. I have that experience. And
that was because people knew what your mom was doing when you were growing
up. Later
on,
people would figure out who she was, or figure out, oh, well, she's really not white. She shouldn't be in here or something like that. And I do remember, obviously, we were before a time before there was caller ID or, all that kind of stuff. And she had gotten herself elected to represent George Wallace in the Democratic at the campaign, in the convention.
Now that doesn't make sense, but tell me why that makes sense.
Well, because the theory was, how could they find out what the strategy is if you're not in the room?
Gotcha.
And so, right. So she got elected as that, and then later on, people figured out, oh my gosh, she's really not a white lady, and man, the calls came in.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah, I think at that time they actually moved and lived with some, nice white family in Washington, D.C. for a while they were going to kill her through that experience.
Because she literally had to fear for her safety because...
Yeah, but they couldn't get her out of there because she'd been elected to the position.
Whoa.
And she was aligned up with some people, hopefully I'm sure you've heard, like Coleman Young, who was a very prominent African American, like I'll tell you, one of my favorite people, probably really shouldn't have been there. This is going to really be crazy, but I was one of the last people to see Jimmy Hoffa alive. I had him come speak at my high school.
Really?
Yes.
You invited him?
Yes.
You were organizing in your high school, or you were leading some student group?
Right. I did a political awareness thing. So anybody, it was anybody, because of my mom, I could get, for my graduation, I had Coleman Young as our speaker because,
your mom was such a well-known figure in the civil rights movement.
Correct. Right.
That when Bobbi calls and says, hey, would you come speak? They showed up.
Right.
That's amazing.
Right.
That's amazing. So not just civil rights organizing, but labor organizing.
Right. Well, she did a lot for those who were disenfranchised. Like one time she had her and some other ladies lock themselves into a welfare office, and until they gave them money enough for their children, they stayed in there, and they got locked in there, and people were sending food up through windows and all kinds of stuff. So she did a lot of things, for people who were disenfranchised. Yeah. Like have you ever heard of a guy on TV called Judge Mathis?
No.
He's one of these judges, real prominent judge on, they have these judge shows on television.
Like Judge Judy?
Yes. Yeah, he's very popular. His name is Judge Mathis. But he'll tell you, he said, he credited her with saving his life because he was going the wrong way. But I grew up in, later we moved into a project, which was really a protection kind of, more or less, kind of safety. But anyway, a lot of people, is he telling us to get over? Or has he got his hand out of it?
I don't know. With Ernest, it's... Yes. This is Ernest, who we are following, who's whose arm was extended like a bird's wing just now. We were trying to figure out what Ernest was doing, but anyhow, there's a shot of this beautiful sky as
we're coming to downtown Dallas.
We're coming into downtown Dallas. And we were just talking with Bobbi, who was telling us a little bit about her family's history. And we went way back in her family's history, from North Carolina to Canada, from Canada to Michigan and Ohio. And in Bobbi's case, from Michigan to Alabama, then to Dallas, ultimately to DeSoto, which is in the southern part of Dallas County, which is where I met her at a town hall on February 23rd at 1 p.m. Yes, Central Standard Time. Yes, Cynthia was telling us. And this morning, before we started the live stream, we were just having a cup of coffee and kind of just trying to get to know a little bit of Bobbi's story. I told her I wanted to ask her story, and I thought it was so interesting that she started with her mom. Very often when you ask someone on their story, they'll say, well, here's what I do, or here's what I'm working on, or it's very much about what's going on at this very moment. And I love that Bobbi began with her mom, and it obviously a big part of who you are. And even you described being able to invite Coleman Young or Jimmy Hoffa to your school. I mean, it had the benefit of allowing you to be able to work with
anybody,
significant leaders at the time while you were still a very young person.
Absolutely. John Conyers. I mean, those people were in our home all the time. One of my favorite people in Michigan was a guy who really was named Rick, was Dick Austin, who was the Secretary of State.
Okay.
And he was just an awesome man. And spent a lot of time getting to know him. And obviously in Detroit, everything was union. So there were people like Mark Stepp and, Jimmy Hoffa down to, they were all friends with my mom.
Yeah.
And
so where did you get to Dallas in the 1980s? What is your path once you're in Texas?
Well, before I came here, I was actually working for Stroh's Brewery in Detroit, and I'd worked there for about 8 or 9 years. I worked there before I went away to school. It's what they call it, like a work-study thing. You do that. Right. I did that. And then when I graduated from college, they still kept me on, and I worked there for many years. But having gone to school in the South, I decided that I just got tired of the winter and different things. So I wanted to move south, and I just asked the Lord to send me someplace I'd be okay. And almost like you said, throwing a dart, and it landed in Dallas, and that's really it. I didn't know anybody here.
Give us one hook that Dallas had, like how, beyond throwing the dart at the map. It definitely wasn't the Rangers, because you're an Astros fan.
Right, and definitely not the Cowboys.
And it's not the Cowboys. You're a Lions fan?
Actually a Steeler fan. Okay. I will root for the Lions, but I'm more of a Steeler fan. I had a friend that played for them for 11 years, and so more of a Steeler fan. Okay,
so So wasn't the sports teams here? What got you? What? Even if it didn't seem meaningful at the time, what was something that stood out to you about Dallas?
Well, I just felt like I would get a fresh start.
Yeah.
Just start over, because in Michigan I always felt like I would have to live my mother's legacy.
Yeah.
So, but it, and I've done my thing, but done it differently. Like for me, I have been tutoring in the public school system in inner city for 15 years now, and kind of doing the one child at a time. Well, not necessarily one child, but 3 or 4, but at a child thing. Her mission was more globally, but mine has been more just personal.
You're having that impact one child at a time.
Yes.
I love that. And tell me what you're seeing as you're tutoring these children, either what you're seeing in the public school system or what you're seeing from them in their lives. What's exciting that you see? What's concerning that you see?
Well, I know they're really happy to see me come. That's for sure. The teachers need a lot of help. You just don't have a lot of parental involvement, which I see as an issue. They have so many restrictions on the teachers. It looks like and I think even in your time or our time, we solved things, and I'm sure I'm sure you've probably looked at some of your children's homework and said, and know how to figure something out a lot easier than your kids have to do it. Would you admit to that?
The other way around. I especially if it's math.
Yes.
I get it, and I'm like, Ulysses, I'm lost, buddy. You're
kind of on your own.
You're on your own. Here's the internet.
Yeah, you're like, Daddy can give
out.
you the answer. It's like this, right? It's just ludicrous. So they are so happy to see, because I'm not restricted to their way of doing
Right.
it. It's like, oh my God, thank you, Jesus, you're here to help us,
And so the relief, obviously the children are going to feel that. They're excited to see, but also the teachers, right?
Yes.
Some of the teacher to class size ratios, and given the needs that some students have, I was one of those students who had real needs, and in math, actually, no joking, I just really struggled. And I remember even going back to 5th grade, my dad set up a deal with one of the teachers that I could come to school at Mesita early, an hour early, and get some tutoring and get some one-on-one, which I think I've told Cynthia this story. For the first week, I was doing that, and then I realized there were all these other kids who got dropped off an hour early because their parents were going to work early, or that was the only time they could get to school, and I just started to hang out with them and stopped going to the tutoring class, and just got into trouble. But I was somebody who needed that attention that you're providing for those kids, and so tell me what that feels like at the end of a school year when you've been providing that tutoring. What are the changes that you see?
Well, I mean, and not only do I do that, but I also mentor them in a lot of ways too. It's just not that.
What age range?
I started the 3rd grade.
Okay.
3rd grade, and but I'm also that person that, and basically I should say this too, mostly boys. The reason is because we're just trying to save so many young black men and keep them out of the system. Can
I ask you a question on an issue that's difficult for us to talk about, but it's
okay.
Undoubtedly true, or incontrovertibly true. I mean, they've studied this, they know it. Right. If you look at black boys in the public school system, and you look at white boys in the public school system, black boys are being punished, are being suspended, or being expelled at a rate. Yes, and not because they are getting into trouble more often or are less disrespectful, and in fact, for those who studied it, it's just that the punishment disproportionately falls on them, and folks have talked about something that for me was kind of an abstraction, to be honest, not something I've of course experienced in my life, but this school to prison pipeline.
Right.
And I've often wondered, what I know that our prison population is disproportionately comprised of people of color, but how is that connected to schools? And those studies and the people who are able who have experienced that can say, listen, it starts in kindergarten, it starts in 1st grade. Have you seen that?
Yes.
Tell me what you're
Yes, I have,
uh,
and I think I'm gonna tell you something. I think that it's gonna be a little out the box.
Okay.
Because
let's hear it.
and I when you go to Washington, and when you become a senator in Texas, and it's. I think a lot of black people would really agree with this. I think separate but equal would have been better off. We would have been better off. I think that because a black teacher in a black institution, you're not going to get that same sense of unequalness, which is the same thing I tell black young people. You need to go to an HBCU. Quit putting yourself in that environment where you have to be fearful, or where you have to do those things, where if you fall asleep in a common area, you get the police called on you. That's not going to happen to you if you're at an HBCU. So I think, as bad as that may sound, separate but equal in that, I think if that could really be pulled off, it'd be better off.
Another phrase that seemed academic, right, or just didn't understand this idea of equity.
Correct.
And listening to people who told me, look, yes, it's about resources, but it's what you're describing. Does the teacher look like his or her students?
And does he live in the area?
Does he live in the area?
Right, because when they see me coming, I mean, the kids are happy to see me. I do a lot of extracurricular things with them too, because I want them to know that there's something else out there. I introduce them to a different way and another way of life. They know that at the end of the year they're going to come have a pool party with Miss Bobby. We're gonna go to the movies. I fortunate. I have, although I'm no longer married, but I do have access to black male role models. So which is one reason I was willing to take on young black boys, because I have access to men that can be mentors or who can help them with things. The family right in front of me, they're scoutmasters. So they know whoever I have for those 2 years or whatever, that they help along and they guide them. You know, I have a gentleman that's 2 houses over from me is a master carpenter. He teaches them how to, you know, he's going to have things. He's going to show them how to build birdhouses and how to do different things. So I have a lot of, like I said, men in my life or environment, maybe that's a better word,
right,
that I can introduce them to, just to show them that there's something else. So much is environment. You know, I know people don't seem to think that, but I disagree. It is environment.
No, I think what you're saying makes a ton of sense. And I keep hearing, when we're talking about equity and we're talking about outcomes, here's a gentleman directing traffic, a number of gentlemen directing traffic. Seems like we have a problem with the lights. Bobbi, what neighborhood are we in now?
South Dallas.
And we're approaching Opportunity Park.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
Is that where we're going, guys?
Right.
Yeah.
Opportunity Park, and anyone is welcome to join us. We're actually getting together to volunteer, knocking on doors, and just letting people know about this upcoming election and making sure everyone's invited to join. And you're welcome to join us. We're going to be at Opportunity Park. Bobbi, I want to let you continue, but this idea of role models and environment extends beyond the classroom. It's neighborhoods. It's I'm learning, and again, better late than never, but I'm definitely late to this. Learning that when you're going to a doctor's office or a medical clinic or a hospital, it's very much the same thing. If people are not from the area, if they don't look like and have the same life experiences as many of their patients, it can be difficult to treat
right
them.
back here. Our
Okay.
parking spot. If you want to loop around, Miss Bobbi.
I need to make a loop.
Yeah, please. So we're going to be in that first parking lot to our right. Sorry to interrupt. There's a spot for us there.
Okay, hold on. Hopefully they know we're with them.
See some volunteers who've got their Beto stuff on.
So then right behind this church, we're going to be parking lot.
Okay.
Hey. We're doing great under difficult circumstances, getting a last minute change of plans. Here we go.
So we're going to see.
Anyhow, I want to continue this conversation. This is what we need to be talking about, and this is what we need to be hearing, and this is what we need to be acting upon.
She has a spot for us. There we go.
Here we go. There's Swati, who's helped us to organize so many great events here. Opportunity Park, everybody, you're welcome to join us. Bobbi, we have a couple of minutes to close out this part of the conversation.
Sure.
I just want to turn it over to you. You have been so helpful to me in some, challenging how we do what we do, who's reflected and represented in the campaign, how we're running this and how we're making sure that when we say everyone, we mean everyone. And when we say everywhere, we absolutely mean everywhere. And you sometimes wonder, can any one person make a difference? I'll tell you, Bobbi's changed this campaign. Literally this one person at one town hall standing up at this one moment, and then to your additional credit, staying engaged and being with us and being a leader. And so I'm really grateful. And I just want to turn it over to you for a couple minutes. Anything that you want to share? It doesn't have to be about the campaign. Really anything that you think is important that those who are part of this campaign and this effort who are watching right now should know about.
Well, I would say that you do need to get involved. That, really, our lives are really on the line here. I mean, we need this man to get elected. Texas needs Beto Rourke. This country is not in a good place right now. And with where Texas stands, we need some Medicare and Medicaid expansion in this state. And I believe, and I know that you believe that we need that as well. I don't really know how you can so much affect the educational system in this, with you taking on that new job. But I hope that, maybe you can help write some legislation and make some changes here in Texas, or at least influence the legislature in this state to make some changes, to make Texas overall a better state. And if we can help the least of these, if we can pull people up from the bottom, we'll just be so much better even at the top.
Oh, I love that. And I love the way that you do everything that you do and the way that you talk about it. And when we saw you this morning, you had the biggest smile on your face. You gave all of us a hug. You've been so encouraging, as well as been so strong in making sure that we're doing this the right way. And so I just love that you're part of this campaign, and you represent the absolute best of us. And so yes, let's do all those things that we've committed ourselves to doing. Let's do it in the right way, and let's do it with everyone. So thank you. Yeah, very grateful. I'm gonna give you a hug with the iPhone.
I feel so hopeful now.
Yeah. All right.
Me too.
Ladies and gentlemen, Bobbi Clavon, our leader, and someone who I'm just so inspired by and I'm so grateful for, and is so representative of this campaign and why I feel so good about our chances, not just to win, but as Bobbi just pointed out, it's not just about the campaign, it's not just about winning, it's about being there for people and making sure that we follow through on the very high expectations that we're setting. So thanks everyone for being with us. Again, we're at Opportunity Park in South Dallas. You're very welcome to join us. We're going to gather with a few hundred volunteers, and then we're just going to go knock on doors, and we would love to have you join us. If you can't be here in person, if you don't live in the Dallas area, stay tuned, because Chris will have the live stream phone and we'll bring you along with us. So thanks everybody. Adios.
Thank you.